Okay, so what would you say is a great investment? Like, what is an investment maybe that you'd consider a bad investment, and what would you consider a good investment? Like, just for someone who's looking to buy property for the first time that might not have that eye that when you are purchasing a property, maybe sort of a guideline.
So I've been in property for 25 years now, and I must say that I have had experience in both. So the one thing I do in my books, I don't just talk about the good deals because I've done some really stupid deals. And I think it's important that people actually know about those deals as well, because that's really where you learn. And I almost get annoyed when you read a lot of these property books because it's just, it's all like, give me a pat on the back all the time because every deal just turns to gold. And that's not the case. So a lot of the reasoning behind writing the books was really to educate people into not making the same silly mistakes that I've made along the way. In terms of good deals, it really comes down to timing, and not that anyone's got a crystal ball about how to time the market. I certainly do not have a crystal ball. I wish I did have one. But the one thing I do know is that there's definitely a time to buy and a time not to buy. The best deals are any deal where the income from the deal can cover as much of the holding cost, if not all of the holding cost, as possible. But the reality is that there's only really one time to do deals like that. And that's when there's a combination of low property prices, so a very slow market, and also low interest rates. So the way I've kind of done deals in the past is that if I go to a show house or a realtor tells me to meet me at a property, and when I arrive there, there's 20 people there already. And they're crawling all over the place. And my realtor's coming to me and saying, oh, you've got to get an offer in now. And you better put it in a full asking price or maybe even 10% over. I'm like, no, I'm out of here. I'll go home, crack open a cold beer, put my feet up. There's absolutely no point in buying. And I never understand when people run around like crazy maniacs in a market like that, trying to buy stuff. It's a complete frenzy. And all you end up doing is paying way too much for a property that in a couple of months, if you're just patient, you could probably get for 20 to 30% less than the asking price. So that's really been the way I've operated over the years, is that I time it in terms of waiting for situations when realtors are calling me and saying, hey, this property's been on the market for 3 to 4 months. Maybe there's an opportunity. And I go in there and you offer 20 to 30% below the asking price. That's when you make your money. I know everyone says you make your money when you buy, but it really is the absolute fundamental block of making money out of property. Anytime you buy, when it's a multiple situation, there's 5 or 6 people offering on the property, very hard to make money out of it unless you hold it for a very long period of time. So in terms of doing good deals, in terms of asset types, as I say, definitely an income producing property that can cover as much of your holding costs as possible and bought in slow market conditions. In terms of bad investments, I've got a property mentor, and his favorite line is never buy a cow unless it gives you milk. And I actually, once in my life, I didn't take his advice. I actually bought this vacant piece of land. I had these illusions of grandeur that it was in a rural setting. I thought, oh, this will make a fabulous weekend getaway house, and it's going to build this beautiful little cabin there. Yeah. So paid a lot of money for it. The market was hot. I didn't take my own advice. Hot market, overpaid, and had this piece of land which was costing me a fortune every year because there were, levies, there was council fees, all the fees that go along with owning land. And over time, I actually changed my mind. I decided, no, I actually didn't want to build a holiday house anymore. I just, I fell sort of out of loving the property. So now I was in a situation where I had no rental income and the property was losing value. And I eventually sold the property for less than I paid for it. And when you write a book called Making Money Out of Property in South Africa, and suddenly you lose money on a deal, it's incredibly embarrassing. I was horrified that I'd got myself into that situation. So I would say that in terms of bad property deals, vacant land, unless you've got an immediate use for it, I would say stay away from it.
Okay. So then basically, what you're saying also is that with that analogy that you made about not buying a cow that does not produce milk, just making sure that whatever investment that it is that you are entering into will give you, will make you money ultimately in the long term, but also generates you some sort of cash flow to cover some of your holding costs, if not preferably all of them.
Correct. Cash flow is king. I mean, think about any business. If you don't have cash flow, the business dies.
Mm.
And property isn't any different. Cash flow is essential.